All right, we're live on YouTube.
Go ahead and do the review of the May 18th meeting minutes. If there's any additions or corrections to that, please. If not, I'll take a motion.
I wasn't here for that meeting, but just by way of one item on the public hearing, the rezoning 56 Salem Road, where it says motions, Ms. McFan approved the rezoning request. I think actually moved, I think you moved.
Yeah.
To approve it, and I do think that in our minutes should always reflect, some basic findings of fact, such as, because I'm sure she probably said it, based on the staff report, and compliance with the comprehensive plan and, whatever else. So I don't know if you had some basic findings. But I think that's what we had always said we should.
I generally do make
Yeah.
the motion that way, so,
You want to just throw something in there on the run, like based on the staff report?
yeah, I generally, that's always there, and if there's something that's beyond the staff report, I would mention it. I don't specifically remember what I did, but, that's my usual custom and practice.
We also want to say you recommended approval.
Right, recommended. Yeah,
Right.
that's right, correct. Recommended approval. Well, I think it's moved to recommend approval to, based on compliance with the staff report and that sort of thing. The only other thing was under Graham Trask comments where it says he owns, I think it should just say it says he owns the most unique lot. I think it's best to say he said he owns the most unique lot.
Or stated,
Or stated,
Yeah.
just
we didn't confirm
seem
that.
kind of conclusory.
Yeah.
That's all. If you can make those changes, that would be.
And that same would apply to the Libby Anderson's motion.
Does she have one?
On the first page.
Well, in the first place.
That's just the minutes.
Yeah, that's
Never
just the
mind.
minutes.
Okay.
So do I have a motion?
And I wouldn't hear, I just, if somebody would make a motion to include those changes, that'd be a good idea.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor of the motion, please signify raising your right hand, and that's unanimous. Do we have anything related to military operations? Anything online? Pardon? Is there anything online? Anything related to military operations online? Thank you. All right, I'd like to applaud Mr. Barden Whopper for his new appointment or reappointment. Thank you very much for agreeing to put in another 3 years. Appreciate that very much so. And also express sorrow that Bill Salter is, this is his last meeting. But we're gonna get him to come back and give him something so he can keep the memories of his.
Keep the
time
memories
here.
alive. The good times roll.
But thank you so much, Bill, for all of your efforts and time that you've spent with this. I don't have anything on here for public comment, but I would like to go ahead and open it up to public comment before we go into the code amendments. Kurt? That's right. Do we need to do that tonight? Since he won't, yeah, this is his last night, so. So do I have any volunteers to replace Bill on that?
Can I ask a question? How long is that going on? What's left to be done now that they've made a recommendation to council on the design and apparently that's been accepted? The bill might know.
Well, I don't know.
What they did was they made the recommendation on the design and then they wanted to stay on board to review the design itself and especially when it comes to the additional amenities go behind the platform. The platform is the design and what they're gonna do with that platform. But what's gonna, the infamous splash park and other amenities in that behind the platform. And also they're still dealing with the marina and the lease with the marina with Safe Harbor, and that's still on the board. So yes, I see that committee going for a little bit while longer.
Bill, on that, is there any kind of a time frame? I mean, when are these design things going to be presented? I understood that they were going to seek financing first and then get her out to the
Well,
design.
they've agreed on a design concept. There were 4 concepts, and then they agreed on one, which essentially replicates what we have now in terms of the design, the function and the design. And that's what they're going to go to the council with to approve and then put that out, not only put that out to bid, but also to come up with the funding, where they're gonna get the funding from, and grants and taxes or something in a pot.
So is the committee going to weigh in on the funding as well?
Yes, they want to review the funding, especially if it has something to do with
Like a deal?
grants and
Yeah.
something like that from the state or the feds. There's still work to be done out there,
So
but
it sounds like it's probably a long project, like not just a little while, but probably for the next several years.
well, the design phase should take at least 18 to 24 months. That's going to be quite, just once they decide on the design firm. But they have to decide on the design firm first.
Is this committee gonna have a part in selection of the design firm?
I think they want to review the qualifications of the design.
Okay,
And it's just not close.
Not close enough? All right.
any other questions for Bill? Since Bill has done all the hard part, who'd like to take the easy part and replace Bill? Any volunteers? Great. We have a volunteer.
Against my better judgment, but I'm happy to volunteer.
Clinton, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So.
I don't know how I'm gonna feel in the future, but sure.
We have-
Another lawyer on the committee will certainly help.
I think they took a little, detected a little sarcasm in there.
Yeah.
I move to approve, Mr. Holman if, based on his offer, sir.
Second that.
Of course.
All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand, and you're yoked. Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I just-
anything else?
I just want to say one thing. Bill, in the Navy, whenever a ship sets out to sea on a long voyage, we say fair winds and following seas. Fair winds following.
Thank you
seas.
very much. That's a very nice thing to say. Thank you. Thank you.
Kurt, is there anything else from the city? Okay. Hearing nothing else, then I will go ahead and open it back up to public comment for a few minutes here, if anybody would like to come forward. Just sign in, Paul.
Good afternoon.
State your name and address.
Oh, Paul Trask, 610 Bladen Street. Well, this has been an awful lot of work, and I know that everyone is anxious to put chapters 2, 3, and 4 to bed. I've got just a couple of very small comments, brief comments that I'd like to make. I think there might be a conflict between two provisions. The first, the provision A, on page 11 of your red line of chapter 2. You could look at that, please. So this is where the last planning session, work session, there was a conversation. It was agreed that going to leave the frontage build out at 60%. There's, if you then refer to chapter 4, and that is on page 45 of the chapter 4 red line, and that provision is 4.5.9 under liner buildings. It says that the frontage under 4.5.9 C1, it says frontage build out 75% minimum. So on the one hand, we've got lots in T5UC with in chapter 2 that refer to a 60% frontage build out. And then we have a liner building requirement that refers to a 75% build out. And that appears to be a conflict.
Paul, what version are you looking at? Are you looking at the version that was published for the
45.
meeting?
I hope so,
Numbers are-
Kim. I hope so.
Could you help us by giving us the section numbers?
Yes, ma'am,
you're
I
referring
will
to?
do that. So chapter 2, the first provision is 2.4.1. It's the chart.
Mhm.
And the fourth chart down on the far right under T5UC calls for 60% minimum build out, which is what it's always been. But then in chapter 4, under the provisions for the liner buildings, specifically 4.5.9 C1, it talks about a 75% frontage build out.
But again, under A, it goes back to 60%.
Yes, sir, yes, sir. The overall T5UC lot frontage build out requirement is 60% in chapter 2. But then there's the reference in chapter 4 for liner buildings at 75. That doesn't,
Well, if you read the language though, it says where a minimum frontage build out of 75% of the lot is required. That seems to qualify it. I'm not sure there's necessarily a conflict.
okay, well then, fine, thank you. I stand corrected on that one, and I don't
Okay.
want to waste time.
No.
All right, thank you. So another one that I had, at the work session last time, there was a conversation about drive-throughs in T5UC. And I left the meeting, I thought, with the notion that if the drive-through lane were screened from public view, that an automobile, just the egress lane, not a stacking lane, but an egress lane, similar to the one at Chipotle, for example, if it were screened, would be acceptable. But the language in has been changed, but I'm not sure it's clear to that point. And that language is in chapter 3, 3.7, 3.1, 3.7.1, D, excuse me, I beg your pardon, I'm sorry. It's 3.7.2 B, 1 little b. And so my only other comment would be, I would like to speak in support of that, and I think it makes sense, given the real world. And again, my goal in attending all of these planning sessions is just to try to arrive at some code that really functions properly in our community. And I want to make mention of a report that was done in 2020. The city commissioned a report from a planning company, MKSK, which is a large international planning firm. And that company prepared a report for the city, got a copy of it. And at the time it was presented, most of the people on council, Councilwoman Sutton, Councilman McPhee, Mayor Cosling, they all thought that the recommendations were a good idea. And specifically, the report said that during the site design process for drive-through businesses, the city should work with the developer to address drive-through design to ensure better vehicular and pedestrian circulation within the site along major highways. So I took that to mean that there should be, and the whole thrust of the MKSK report was to basically observe certain parts of the code with respect to our overlay districts that didn't seem to be working exactly well. So I would advocate for allowing not a stacking lane, but just an exit lane, just a slip lane that could go around the building, provided that it was screened from public view. I don't think it creates any detriment to the district. It does not interfere with pedestrian access from the public street. And it just makes things work a little bit better. So those are my only comments. And again, I just want to say thank you for all of everyone's hard work on these chapters.
So, Paul, looking at 3.7.2, B as in boy, 1, little b,
Yes,
that's the section you're referring to, correct?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it says drive-through lane shall not circulate around any primary street except for any drive-through being located in RMX. And then there's a specific section to T5UC that says if you can't screen it with the building, the planning commission may determine that opaque fencing or vegetation may be permitted to fulfill this requirement, provided all other standards of the ordinance are met. Is that not what you
Well,
thought?
if there's another provision elsewhere in the code, and I'm sorry, I can't make a note of it. It just clearly says that, it just can't circulate the building. So there might be a conflict there, but if you think, if the planning commission believes that this language accomplishes what I'm trying to describe, then great. But I'm not sure that the language works precisely. That's the only thing. But if we can go on the record that that's what it means, then so be it.
I didn't think it was clear either, and I had noted that in my notes. So I think what we had said was, however it circulates, I'm less concerned about whether it's access or exit or stacking. I just think that the point is to have whatever happens in front of the building, it needs to be screened from view, period. And I think that trying to say that it's an exit or it's an access, but it's not a stacking area. I mean, I think everything is sort of stacking, you know, other than the car picking up its, but making the order, picking something up, everything is stacking. So what you're really trying to do is just make sure that whatever is happening in front of the building along the street frontage is screened. Isn't that really what we're trying to do?
I believe so, but again, if you were to take the Chipotle as an example, so you have a drive-through that's on the right side.
Yeah.
And so your stacking all occurs behind the building. And so that seems to me to be a better alternative. And that way, any cars that go through when they finish their business at the window, they just simply drive away. They're not lingering. And then if you screen them, so that was the illustration that I was trying to arrive at, that might be acceptable if there were proper screening and if there were no stacking in the front. That was the point I was hoping for.
Well, wouldn't a better example be at the bank?
I'm sorry, Bill.
An example of what you're doing, talking about putting the screening in on the exit is at the bank.
Yes, the
Where
bank, the South
you come
Atlantic
around,
Bank, the
yeah.
South Atlantic Bank, but that one, they have very little traffic through that. And so conceivably, a car could stack on the front in that particular case, but it is screened. So to Bill's point, if it were screened, I think if you were going to do that, what you would want to do is perhaps, for example, everyone likes Chick-fil-A. Everyone likes them. No fussing about Chick-fil-A, but they have tremendous stacking. And so in my mind, it would be difficult to screen that degree of stacking. So if there were going to be some limitation perhaps put on it, you might want to say, well, you know, limit it to maybe a maximum of 20 cars stacking instead of 70 or whatever they have, whatever it is. I don't know.
I think if you ever have another Chick-fil-A, there's stacking, I mean, just, you know, it goes around and around. I mean, that's how much business.
It certainly does.
So, since we're making the exception only for RMX, I mean, I'm just thinking that you say drive-throughs may be accessed or exited across the front of the building so long as screened from view, period, and forget all the rest of it. Because, in other words, we don't want the kiosk necessarily right there, I guess, but you don't mind them passing through there on the way to the order window or on the way exiting the order window. That's just sort of the way I look at it.
I think our discussion had been really pertaining to RMX, not the T5UC.
Right.
And I'll just say that I would not support changing the code to allow drive-throughs to circulate around the front of buildings in the T5UC.
I think we were talking about RMX.
Oh, no, I was referring to T5UC. So that was the,
And if we want to talk about that, I do have a few notes that I had jotted down when this discussion came up earlier last fall, but if we're not gonna, I can share those if we get into that discussion a little bit more.
Well, maybe we should come back to this when we get to, I don't know how we're gonna proceed tonight, whether we're gonna go. check
Yeah,
two
let-
first, then three, then four, or how we're gonna do it, but.
Yeah, because I guess I'm a little confused too about that, the first sentence in G, I guess it's specific to RMX.
I mean, I remember we talked about that.
I know we've talked
that-
about it.
That bank example, and in the end, I think we all thought that worked out just fine,
Yeah,
or most of us.
yeah.
We're trying to accommodate that kind of situation. I guess you're right, not just in RMX. What's the zoning there? That's.
it's T5UC.
I'll just mention, one of the points about landscaping is that you can't rely on that to be a permanent type of screening. I mean, the the new bank really does look nice, and I think we all would agree about that, but how is it gonna look in 5 years? And then how's the next project that proposes a drive-through lane in the front gonna look with landscaping? I mean, there's no guarantees.
And I would agree with that. I think we need to add a sentence, say that the landscaping must be maintained in perpetuity.
I mean, really,
again,
truly, that's the case everywhere. I mean.
She-
I mean, I've had this experience, not in this jurisdiction, but elsewhere. You approve all this wonderful stuff, you know, colors of the building, the design, the landscaping, and then time passes by and all of a sudden all the landscaping dies, it's removed.
Mhm.
You know, the building that was supposedly gonna be this color become, you know, and this happens with
Right.
some of the big box stores, and all of a sudden, nothing looks like what you approved, and zoning enforcement just doesn't bother with it. It's like, so I mean, everything that we approve has to be enforced, both approved and that's code recorded, has to be enforced long term, or otherwise this stuff isn't worth.
I agree. I agree. And if I recall correctly, the new landscaping that came out of the commission and has already been approved by city council provides the administrator with the ability to require landscaping to be replanted, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
But with design and putting the drive-through circulation lane in the proper place in back of the building, you don't need to worry about it. Because there's nothing to
Mhm.
screen.
Mhm.
now going in a circle here then.
Literally,
Yeah.
I'll stop.
Yeah.
I'll stop. I don't mean to take up all the
All right.
time on this, but you know, one final thing, I prepared I thought a really lovely photo that might be used as an illustration to illustrate the alternative single story. And so if that could be squeezed in, I thought it turned out really good.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you.
I think we want to do that. Any other public comment before we move forward? Okay,
Hi, Graham Travis, 1211 Bay Street. Can you hear me?
yes,
So I want to go back to the drive-through. I am looking at the red line. I'm actually quite surprised that the first sentence was put in there, which is drive-through shall be located to the rear of the building. The nature of the discussion on T5UC, and again, this is little b I or 1, I guess. Do you guys see where I am?
yes,
Yes.
So that was not the nature of the discussion for T5UC last time. I don't know where that sentence came from, but from a practicality standpoint, that causes what amounts to a racetrack in the back of your building. And you will see that as evidenced by the Wendy's on Boundary Street, as well as to some extent the McDonald's there at the corner. And with T5UC, Paul's example of the Chipotle is a perfect example of something that really functions quite well. You have the entry lane from the rear, stacking is largely from the rear. The pickup is on the side of the building. And so I think it's really important to define these terms, because when you say drive through, what does that mean? Is that the pickup window? Is it the order area? Is it the stacking? Is it the entrance? Is it the exit? And these words matter. And I think it's really important to define these things, because this is going to have to be operationalized, obviously. And so I believe that a really workable solution, which is aesthetically pleasing, again, comes back to that Chipotle, which is you enter, you could enter from the rear. You have your menu board towards the rear. You have your pickup window either on the rear or on the side. And then you can exit across the front of the building in T5UC. At a minimum, that is a very workable and aesthetically pleasing solution, I believe. What do you guys believe with that? Again, T5UC.
Personally, I agree. I mean, that could be corrected, just say drive-throughs shall be located to the rear or side of the building.
Well, that's how it was. I don't know why. I don't know how it got to be drive-throughs shall be located to the rear of the building. And I would urge you to put it to the side of the building. And if screening is necessary, obviously you need to put in the
And it
screening
might even be that you say drive-through
window.
and kiosk and order kiosk. I mean, that's really, those are the two principal things, I guess, that you're trying to screen is all that other infrastructure there.
Well, I
Yes,
think
sir.
you could leave stacking in there as well, but I think if you just replace those words, like you just said, Bill,
Drive-through.
to the rear or side.
Those kiosks and stacking shall be to
Yes.
the rear and side.
Yes.
Or
We
side.
have different categories, I think, that we're trying to address. I think service window location, that is going to be pickup, I believe.
Yes,
pickup and
pickup
pay
window. The
would be-
pickup window can be on the rear or the side.
Right, and that's what it says, shall not be located on the facade. And then.
Wait,
we
no,
have-
it doesn't say that. Sorry, it does not say that.
That the drive-through window shall not be located on the facade of the building facing.
No,
any private-
little b, 1.
No, A, I'm referring to A, B1A, service window location.
Okay, then go to B, B1.
So that's, I think that is an attempt to distinguish the lanes from the service window location. And then down
Okay.
further, 1D, we have menu board. And I
Well,
believe.
let's go
that might
back
not
to,
be- Wait, just
let's go
let
back
me
to-
finish.
Mhm.
I think the menu board, maybe we need to change the terminology, but I do believe that the menu board may be where you place your order.
correct.
So they're talking about three different things. And then
So-
stacking is sort of an add-on, but maybe our terms need to be changed to make them a little clearer.
That's a good idea. So you're suggesting that in big B, little b 1, drive-through refers to the lane?
Yes, because the heading for 1B1 that's in bold is drive-through lane location. And the little one under the B is a further, point under drive-through lanes.
Yeah, so in
Well-
other words, the Romanet 1 really is talking about the lane and not the location of the window. You raise a very good point. This language does address where the service window location would be.
Okay, so the drive-through window should not be located on the facade of the building facing any primary street, mid-block. Drive-through window must be located in the rear of the property.
No, it says in B1A that drive-through window shall not be located on the facade facing any primary street frontage.
And then it goes on to say, in mid-block and alley access locations, the drive-through window must be located in the rear of the properties.
Right.
So
I'm not sure what's unclear about that. Maybe we
Uh,
could service window,
So can the service window be on the side of the building, given that?
well, I guess if there was something was on the corner of two primary streets, that could be a problem with that language.
Well,
Why don't we change the language to what we want rather than trying to tweak the things that are there? I mean, what we're saying.
I think the language that's there is what we want. The question about whether or not the service window could be located on the side of the building is something that's impossible for us sitting here to answer tonight, because every single site that wants to have a drive-through window is going to be unique, in its own way. So I don't know if it makes sense to ask that question without having a particular site and a particular situation in front of us.
Well, the Chipotle building,
Yeah, but the Chipotle building is not something that we're considering as a new project under the revised code.
Yeah, I don't think we want to do the Chipotle. But, if you go to, section 4.5.13, page 32 of 52, for drive-through facilities, special site requirements. I think maybe the easy solution to this is, that sentence, which I will agree, I don't remember how that sentence got there, but we were just redlining in the meeting, so. That 5.4.13 says rear and side. drive-through.
Exactly.
So
So
I
if you
think we
just keep
should
side,
probably-
you're good.
I think we talked the RMX. I think everybody was maybe in agreement with the exemption on RMX because that changed 2 weeks ago. But I do think that with the T5UC sentence, we should just add rear or side. I would agree that
Yeah, if
we
you
should allow
yeah.
the side just because it's going to be hard to design a drive-through without being able to use the side. So.
You're talking about the window, or are you talking about the lanes?
I'm talking about the lane and the window. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to completely block the view of, it's up to you. I mean, we're given the exemption for RMX, so hopefully they're always going through RMX, but, it's really up to you. I mean, if you want to just say T5UC is urban, it shouldn't have drive-throughs, then just do the rear, and then it's completely, it's up to the designer to figure that out. I mean, most of
That's-
these properties are split zoned anyway, except for in the urban core, so.
I mean, and Wendy's did it. I mean, I guess they're in T5UC.
There,
Might not
Am I-
like some of the rear aspect of it, but from the street frontage, the drive-through doesn't come around the front.
Right.
yeah. The problem logistically is that you've taken outside. And I don't know how that happened in the language. Maybe it was just a mistake, but the Wendy's, yes, they can do it. You're right, but they've got a racetrack back there. And as someone who actually does these things rather than regulates them, you need to have the flexibility to have the pickup window on the side. And
Okay.
that was in the original code. And somehow you've redlined it out, and I don't know how. I think maybe it was just a mistake, but it's something I noticed.
Well, I'd like to go back to Bill's suggestion on that language where we put the side back in there.
I don't think that it was on the original language in the code didn't mention the side, but this,
But does it make sense?
Let's just go
Oh.
to the original language,
I mean,
so everybody can read it. Maybe we can put that up.
I
as
know,
well.
hard to imagine having a lane, having the drive-through on the side without having a lane on the front.
Well, you can
that's why
go.
it was silent on that. It didn't say you couldn't do it. Didn't say you could, it just was silent on that issue of the side. And if you say on the side, then you're sort of setting yourself up for a problem
Mhm.
by coming around the front.
No, you can do it without having to do that.
But it never did, and it's not saying now that you can't put it on the side. So,
It's saying drive-throughs shall be located in the rear of the building. That's pretty clear.
it's saying, it says that on the window?
Says it about the lane.
Okay, but Ms. McMahon said, I thought we're talking about the window.
The window is addressed in B1A.
Right, and it doesn't say you can't put it on the side.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I'm
I think
on the
it's
same,
okay.
yeah. I'm
So on
the
the,
same
the
page.
screen is the
Right,
original
so-
code.
It does say, it says in the second
So-
sentence,
so
in
you-
mid-block and alley access locations, the drive-through service windows must be located in the rear of the properties.
So it doesn't
So
say it's silent on
That's
the.
the service window, and drive-through lane location is a whole separate thing.
Right.
So, and then we've added the exemption for RMX. And then, there was that discussion with the rear of the building sentence that we added. So I think, as the suggestion to be consistent with 4.5.13, that should probably be to the rear or side of the building, because we've already specifically kind of added those regulations, or just take it out altogether and just leave it the way it was. And then add that planning commission may determine that opaque fencing or vegetation and keep the RMX. I think one of the two things would work. Personally, simple fix.
So one of the things that if we're going to address something like this in two locations, there should be a cross-reference. Because, that was one of the most confusing aspects of the code prior to the last revision, is things were just all over the place. And we haven't solved.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. So maybe on number 1, that's on your screen, shall be subject to the following standards and section 4.5.13, right? That's what it is. So that could be an addition that you would make if you approve this code tonight, you just make that amendment, and then whatever amendments you agree on. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And the whole issue of drive-throughs in RMX versus T5UC, I mean, again, very different in terms of the standards. In RMX, the building is going to be set back from the street more than likely. There's going to be a wide landscape buffer in front. In T5UC, the building is going to be right up on the street, right up on the street. And again, if you're going to squeeze the drive-through lane or whatever we're going to call it, it's going to be building, drive-through lane with car, and then sidewalk, right there, boom, boom, boom. And I just think we need to think about pedestrians and bikes walking down the street, and you've got cars going down Boundary or 170
Well,
on the left.
basically, that's
And then you
Chipotle.
got.
That's
drive-through,
Chipotle, isn't it?
right. But that-
Chipotle is an exit. I do have one more point. May I continue, Mike?
Yeah, just a second.
Yep.
Maybe we can finish this off, Kurt.
Yes,
I
sir.
think you can clear this up if we,
I think you've got 2 options and you just have to decide, do you want to keep the code the way it was with the RMX and add the RMX exemption? Or do you want to just add located to the rear and side of the building to the specific to T5UC? I think that sounds like it would correct the problem. What's on the screen? That's just my interpretation, but and add the reference to 4.5.13.
Say that again, Kurt, I'm sorry.
This is just, I'm just giving you my opinion here, but it sounds like no one's really, against the RMX kind of allowance that we changed 2 weeks ago. So if that is the case, then there's 2 potential options, just to keep the language it was before. So keep the RMX addition and then remove that first sentence that says drive-through shall be located to the rear building. Just keep it the way it was. Or just add the sentence drive-through shall be located to the rear or side of the building, which is consistent with 4.5.3.
Why was it put in there? I like just taking it out. What was wrong with drive-through shall not be visible from any
I
primary
think
street?
that's a very valid, I think one of the 2. I think either
yeah,
one.
I kind of think taking that first sentence out would probably be better, because during design review, I think we'll catch whatever we need to catch.
Exactly.
So the first sentence you're talking about is the first sentence of B1, B little 1.
Yes,
Okay.
Correct.
Take that little.
Yeah.
The first.
take that first sentence out of there. I think that makes sense.
But
So are we saying that it's okay to have a drive-through lane on the front of the building then for a T?
We are not. We are
No.
not. So as I think Ms. McFan pointed out, you have a service window location requirement that basically says you can't do it on a mid-block or alley located. You can have a drive-through service window. Then the lane location, it basically is saying it shall not be visible from a primary street frontage. So it's kind of silent on, it can be a side or but it cannot be visible from the primary street frontage, and it's impossible to, it basically puts it up to the planning commission. If it's impossible to screen it, it's giving the designer some option, but it's basically putting in a discretionary approval only if they can absolutely screen this from the primary street. So
Right.
both lanes, both the side or the front or the rear, I think it's giving you that discretion. So I
Well,
think
The only
I'm
thing
fine with that.
the only thing I'd even think about adding to this would be, landscaping shall be maintained in perpetuity.
Well, that's in another section of the code.
Yeah, I think. it
Or
goes without
I
saying.
guess you could refer it to that other section of the code then.
Or we could add right before the word vegetation in B, 1B, little one, we could add the phrase perpetually maintained vegetation.
You could. You could. I mean, what this is setting up is it's a decision you'd have to make, because it's basically you're saying you shouldn't really do this. So someone's gonna have to come before you to make their case. And if they do, you can put conditions on the site plan to do it, but it doesn't hurt anything to say, you know, or perpetually maintain vegetation as a,
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt anything, but
Yeah.
but it's elsewhere in the code is what you've
yeah,
said.
it is.
'Cause it's
It is,
important
but
that
it doesn't hurt anything. You know, I think we've all, as Ms. McMahon mentioned, we've all experienced, I know I have, and I think my staff has, is the cross-referencing in this can be difficult. So we should probably add any help that we can. Right?
I think,
Back to the previous question, if those changes are made to paragraph little I, but we're leaving B as, I mean, the first sentence, drive-through lane location, drive-through lanes shall not circulate around any primary frontage except for drive-throughs being located with RMX. Does that mean with these new tweaks that a Chipotle site plan would or would not be allowed in T5 UC? With that drive-through coming around the front, because it's screened or what could be screened. I mean, it's still saying, nobody's saying to delete that first sentence, drive-through lanes shall not circulate around any primary street frontage. So if the intent is to allow that, need to be a little more clear, because it's still in there saying it can't. So we're still setting up that conflict. And as I said, I personally am
Which number is this, Livy? I'm sorry.
that section, we're talking just little b, big B, 1B.
Yeah, I see your point.
Oh,
Maybe we-
right.
Yeah, so you see it.
Maybe we just
says-
keep it the way it is and then do the specific to RMX number 2, that you see on the screen, because I think that addresses it pretty well.
So we really need to be clear about what,
Right.
Because then it says you
right,
can,
what the desire is.
Well, if we want to say an exit lane or post pickup lane is okay on a primary street, we could just say that in another, you know, make another category of lane. I don't know if we want.
well, if you look on your screen, I think maybe we have it here. If we get rid of the B sentence and we get rid of the I first sentence, and then we go to 2, specific to RMX, drive-throughs may be accessed or exited across the front of the building. Vehicle stacking must remain on the side or the rear of the building. The planning commission may determine that opaque fencing or vegetation may be permitted to fulfill this requirement, provided all other standards of the ordinance are met.
Okay, here's the confusion. I was looking at the clean copy, and that section 2 is not in the clean copy.
Yeah, that's an issue.
I just can't see how, let's just call it generic vehicular circulation lane located immediately adjacent to a sidewalk. Maybe there's a, you know, fence with living fence there. I just can't see how that makes for a comfortable, inviting pedestrian experience. And again, on Boundary Street, different than RMX, we're talking millions of public dollars were put into Boundary Street to make it more, one of the main goals was to make it more pedestrian and, you know, friendly, pedestrian and bike, multimodal. And I think allowing a vehicular circulation lane immediately adjacent to the sidewalk is at odds with that. And so I'm just saying, I personally am not going to support that.
May I chime in?
yes, we're still open to public.
Thank you. I just back to the big B 1, little b, drive-through lanes shall not circulate around any primary street frontage is at odds with number 2. So Kurt, were you planning on taking that sentence out? or what was your solution for that?
This was all done 2 weeks ago, so, I think we're thinking it through. I think we just need,
Well, I think that's a question mark. Number two question mark. The second sentence or last sentence in two, specific to RMX. What does that mean? What the planning commission may determine that opaque fencing or vegetation may be permitted to fulfill this requirement. What requirement is the opaque fencing or vegetation fulfilling?
no, it really doesn't. That's why we cut it.
Perhaps, I think the intent there was that,
Standard.
the planning commission may determine that opaque fencing or vegetation may be required in this circumstance.
Well,
think
let's say that.
Yeah, I agree with
We know what
Clayton.
it is intended,
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
doesn't say that.
Yeah, I think that's what, you raised a good point. I think that's what it should say.
Okay. I think that's a good suggestion. And then finally, and I do want to talk about liner buildings, but so please don't cut me off before I'm allowed to do that. We seem to be not in total agreement on an exit across the front of a T5 UC building. And Libby has an opinion that the exit lane makes things uncomfortable, but yet it's comfortable if cars are going by at 45 or 50 miles an hour, as is. I would have thought that the cars going by at 45 or 50 miles an hour right by the sidewalk would be the uncomfortable thing, not the one car that's going 5 miles an hour exiting the drive-through lane. So I still am pushing and challenging the board to think about the applicability of an exit across the front of a T5 UC building for a drive-through.
Well, I think. I
So
mean,
perhaps the easiest thing to do is just to keep the ordinance the way it is.
And let the
Get rid of the
planning board
specific to
decide.
RMX and let 4.5.134 kind of way. I think it's better. I know we wrote this to specifically address a lot of this stuff, and I think we didn't really think too much about this until 2 weeks ago, this specific section of the existing code. And so I think 4.5.13 is a lot better. It kind of addresses everything we're talking about. Because I think that we don't want, it's not so much the exit that we're concerned about, it's the circulation lane kind of going in between the street and the drive-through.
yeah, and I think that would, having what you're saying, 45-mile-per-hour cars on one side is bad enough, but then if you add another car circulation on the opposite side, is gonna make it, worse to me versus, it being purely for pedestrian. And then I guess I have a question on this.
But
Why,
okay.
why can't drive-throughs exit to the street? Like, why does it have to have a separate lane?
I don't think that they don't have to exit to the street.
I mean, just a thought.
I don't understand what you mean by why can't drive-through lanes exit to the street?
Instead of, instead of circulating around the building, just exit directly into Robert Smalls.
Because SCDOT won't allow it.
These are limited
Yeah.
access highways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My view is
Well, there'd be a
all-
drive.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that we're just making the design of these things so gosh darn complicated.
Correct.
I mean, I sympathize with what Libby says, and I get it, you know, sort of, but, you know, I just think in these places where you got these shopping centers and these are on limited access highways, you can't just go around the building and just access out to the street. They're very difficult to design these. I've been down the road so many times and you know, arguing about these same things. And it's just difficult. And I think in the abstract, it's a lot easier to design these things than in the real world of, you got the last outlot in a shopping center and you're trying to just figure out how I'm gonna get the car out of this drive-through. Me is what seems important is to make sure that you don't have the drive-through window, you don't have the kiosk or whatever you call it, the menu board, and the stacking isn't in front of the place. And if all you have is just an exit lane, you can screen that, and we can say so. That doesn't address the situation that you said, Libby, that somebody might want to walk from the sidewalk to the drive-through restaurant and have to cut across that exit lane. But that happens in these parking lots all the time. And it's not like you're driving, you know, you're walking across a really busy, you know, section of traffic. And it's probably going to be striped or something, so you have to walk across there. But it's not going to be in every case anyway. And I think in the instance of that bank that we've talked about so many times, I don't think there's any need to walk from the sidewalk to the building across that exit lane, is there? You can, but that's not the primary means of access to the building, I don't think.
So I have some concerns about screening exit lanes. I think that's a safety problem potentially. Especially if they're gonna be exiting on Robert Smalls or a road like that.
Well, they won't exit directly out of that lane onto Robert Smalls. They'll exit out of that lane into the parking lot, that
Right.
area. And nobody's going to exit directly out of a drive-through lane onto a busy street. You'll exit, you just don't see that. And it's to the earlier discussion, if it's a state road in particular, nobody will permit you to do that.
Well, like, I was just thinking of Beaufort Station as an example, relatively new construction. They have all those liner buildings, some of them are, restaurants. And there's quite a few accesses to Robert Smalls along the length of that property. There's
Only a
3,
few.
4,
Oh,
5
oh,
different
there's
lanes.
only two. No, not really. There's only two.
There's a
there's-
number of them. There's the circle down by Aldi, and then there's several before you get to the corner. They all have stop signs and it's right turn only.
Okay.
And the other, like the restaurants and the other little stores in the liner building, their exit from their little property is onto those.
Not really, no. I was just there within the past 36 hours and all of those exit essentially out into the parking lot on the other side of those liner buildings. None of them exit into a driveway that goes to Robert Smalls.
Well, it's actually a
Yeah.
street.
It's a,
We're kind of going in a circle.
yeah, very much so.
Everything we're talking about is where we're kind of back to square one on this. Because we're going back to where we started, trying to clear this whole section up. And the language that we have in here, we're kind of coming back around to that. And there seems to be the main question I think that I see here is that lane that goes between the building and the road in the front of the in the front. We're all coming back to that. We've all agreed that will never have a window on that or a order screen.
Right.
The only thing that would ever be is a lane.
Right.
So we've concluded that already. We've
Right.
all agreed to that up till now, except for Libby's comment where she doesn't really agree that should happen. And then the only other thing we've done with this language or try to do with this language is to put screening of that
Lane.
from public view.
Right.
So that was the attempt that was made, and I think that's what Kurt has attempted to try and do here. Now, we could clean this language up a little bit, to make it a little better, to reflect that. But that's a simplified version of it. So, the question I think we have is to clean up this language a little bit, but leave the intent the same, that you allow that lane to be there, but it has to be screened, or we just eliminate the fact that we're allowing to have that lane there at all, which would be in compliance with what Libby seems to be talking about. So to me, the conversation seems to have either one of those two options.
For T5 UC only.
Yeah. So does that make sense to the board?
It does.
Yeah, and are we eliminating little two,
No.
or are we changing it to say,
Well, if we're all in agreement to that, then what I'd like to get to is whether or not the board would like to go back to what Libby is advocating, and that is that there is no lane there at all, which I can understand.
Yeah.
I certainly understand that, but is that the direction that the board would like to go with the code?
I don't agree with that. I don't have a problem with the Chipotle situation because and I want to ask Libby, is your concern safety? That somehow a car is going to get out of that drive-through lane and strike somebody? Because if it's a matter of somebody walking, I don't see how a drive-through lane would inhibit people from walking down the street.
Now, let's say though, if that, well, it might not inhibit, but it certainly wouldn't encourage. I don't think it feels comfortable, again, when you've got the 4 lanes or 5 lanes on traffic on one side, and you've got the vehicles, whether they're stacked or circulating.
Well, let me just tell you this, and this is a real life example. I get my car washed, hand washed at a car wash on the other side of that Wendy's. And then I walk from there down to the coffee shop in the shopping center where Food Lion is. And I have walked down that sidewalk in the time I've lived in Beaufort 10 times getting my car washed. I've walked right past that Chipotle all the way down to that coffee shop to have coffee while my car is getting washed. I have never felt inhibited from walking because that Chipotle drive-through was right there. In fact, I never paid attention to it. You just don't see it.
I wonder if that's replicated on site after site after site down Robert Smalls or down Boundary Street, because now T5UC, we're talking, I mean, all the way from that intersection, all the way back to Wendy's. So we're got drive-through lanes, you know, could be all along Boundary Street.
I mean,
there.
that's the core of the form-based
And
code
I'd
is.
also just
so-
like to remind folks, if, with regard to our other neighbors, the town of Port Royal does not allow drive-throughs to circulate around the front of buildings. And the county doesn't either in their transect zones. So I'm just wondering why we would be the ones to,
And that's
I mean, do we,
contradictory to the form-based
Right,
code
it just
too.
is-
So that's why I
again,
think we
this
were
is only in
thinking
T5UC.
maybe the RMX would be a place where you might allow that in certain circumstances, but you know, you still, it really should.
I think Mr. Trask wants to say
Yeah,
something.
hang on. What I'd like to do, I'll get to Mr. Trask first here, let him make a comment, and then what I'd like to do is go back to the board and take a poll of everybody on the board, whether to continue on with this line of reasoning and develop the
Discussion.
language
Mhm.
or not, so that we can move on past this.
Mhm.
So, Kurt, if you don't mind, I'll ask Paul to.
Thank you. Just one final point. It's actually much worse in the case of the rear drive-through. Think about the Wendy's restaurant. If you're going to the Wendy's, you're parking your car and you're forced to walk across a stack of vehicles that are lined up at the rear of the building. And so there's really no way to get into the building unless you happen to be walking that rare person that is happened to be walking on Boundary Street. In reality, yes, we have provided for pedestrians. It's a wonderful trail. I've been up and down it myself, and I'm up and down the street, but you don't see too many people walking on Boundary itself. They just, it's just a fact.
You don't.
But if you're going to visit that business where the drive-through lane circulates to the rear, like the Wendy's, you're forced to walk across that traffic. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
I'd
May-
just like to,
May I, since it was my public comment, may I just follow on that? So,
Yeah, briefly, if you wouldn't.
yeah,
mind.
I know you want to move on. I totally concur with what Paul is saying. And as someone who has developed drive-throughs, and this is kind of almost a philosophical religious discussion. You have some people who are so adamantly opposed to drive-throughs that they force the drive-through to the rear, and it is undoable. And it's a way to prohibit drive-throughs, period. And that's the line of thinking. And that's what some people have been successful to do, and as was pointed out in the county and Port Royal. The other line of thinking, which is the more moderate thinking, is you adapt the drive-through configuration to meet the needs of both pedestrian and the cars in a way which is sympathetic to the streetscape, as well as to the building, as well as to the zoning. And I think the comments about the safety ring true, that there's not a safety concern, particularly if you've got the screening aspect, because you've got the greenery there in between the sidewalk and the drive-through exit lane, for example, where somebody's going maybe 3 miles an hour, while to your left, cars are zooming by at 50 miles an hour. Think about that, because keeping everything in the rear creates a dynamic which is not workable.
I'd just like to make one more comment. I'm sorry. I am not anti drive-through, but I am pro pedestrian. And with regard to pedestrians in this area on Boundary Street, Robert Smalls Parkway, we have hundreds of new units, either already developed or under construction. We've got Pintail Point, Carrington Manor, Point Grand, Live Oaks at in Salem Bay, on and on and on, hundreds, maybe thousands, a couple thousand of units right there within walking distance of, let's say, Beaufort Plaza. We need to make it convenient. We need to make it safe. We need to make it attractive for people to try to work to this major commercial node. And I just don't think having drive-throughs lanes or vehicular circulation lanes lining Boundary Street and Robert Smalls Parkway serves that goal.
If I just may say from a staff perspective, I think, let's just go back to where we were 2 weeks ago. This came from Mr. Trask, which is fine. We made a lot of changes. And I think the discussion was the RMX. I think everybody agreed the transect, as we talked about, is supposed to be more urban and walkable. It's in the downtown, but the RMX is not a transect, and maybe drive-throughs should be a little easier. And maybe the language that was kind of decided 2 weeks ago really didn't capture that very well. So instead of re-arguing this whole thing and getting ready, I think that was the core decision. Do you feel like the RMX, which is kind of more out on Robert Smalls and Highway 21, is it's not an urban setting yet, and it might not ever be. It's more suburban. Should there be some exemption or some, allowance for RMX to have a little slightly different standard? And I think maybe the challenge here is we thought maybe captured it, but looking at this again, I don't think we really captured it very well to how to give that exemption for RMX. But otherwise, maybe we just keep the T5 UC the way it is and the 4.513 instead of reconsidering all this and then give that allowance to the RMX, considering it's a suburban kind of traditional district that I think we're kind of expecting to see a Zaxby's and a Chick-fil-A and, you know, but it still would have some decent design, you know, it still would have some limitation and give you the discretionary power, but yet the designer a little more ability to kind of, you know, design it as they would throughout the country. Does this make sense to everybody? So instead of re-arguing this, maybe we just need to think about what that RMX exemption should read like. And I think we can do that tonight without too much struggle. That makes sense to everybody, instead of arguing the philosophy of. I know Libby might not agree with Ms. Sanders might not agree with the RMX either, but I think we kind of went there 2 weeks ago. And so, you know, you know, maybe that's the first discussion and then maybe we can just specific to RMX and just keep the rest of the code the way it was.
So I guess the question is if we could have a lane on the front for RMX.
I think this to circulate or exit, I think that sounds like,
Hmm.
and if you did so, would you still want the planning commission to kind of determine that, you know, based on, you know, they still have to screen or something? It's discretionary kind of approval. That's the way I see it. You know, I think to, you know, Mr. Trask's point, you know, he was bringing up the fact that staff has already approved, not previous staff approved a bunch of drive-through kind of lanes. Beaufort Station, et cetera, where they're exiting or ordering. So it's, you know, I think we just have to kind of figure this out. And I think RMX is maybe the way to do it. Does this, hopefully we can just limit to that. And I think we can come up with an easy sentence or two between all the attorneys on this.
There you go again with attorneys.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. I mean, we can do that.
Well, why
That's
wouldn't you
just my
just add
opinion.
the screening suggestion, Mr. Holman suggested and keep RMX? I didn't even know we were talking about RMX. I thought we were talking about T5UC.
I mean, we're an hour and 15 minutes into the.
Yeah. Could-
One item, and we were hoping to maybe get through.
Yeah,
three
everything.
entire chapters tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only way that I can see out of this is if we just take a show of hands or something on the fundamental principle, and then if we can agree on that, even though there'll be some dissenters perhaps, we rewrite that one outside of this meeting. And if that's appropriate, I may be the only one on this, but my view is personally is on everything I've heard is in both the RMX and the T5UC to allow an exiting lane across the front of the building as long as it's screened from view.
Well, and I would agree with that, but I think it might be easier if we even took those separately. T5UC from RMX with
Yeah,
a,
I'm
with,
just-
with a.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying I
with
support it in
a,
both of those.
with a vote. So, I guess I'd like to see if we can poll the board, individually, about having a lane even in the code, between, RMX and T5UC as separate items, because
Okay.
I can see where the RMX, more people would be
That,
in favor of that, and maybe T5 is a little different, and then we could go to a little bit of a rewrite. So
separate.
I'm gonna go ahead and let me poll the board then for all those that would be in favor of allowing a lane in front on the RMX zoning, please signify by raising your right hand. Pretty unanimous there. So, yes, on the RMX, and then the T5UC, those who would be in favor, and we'll rewrite it for the screening, and everything that we've been talking about. But, all those that would be in favor of the lane in front of the T5UC. Three to four.
Okay, so I mean, I think you can easily do this. I think we tried to do this 2 weeks ago. So maybe we're almost there. Okay, so we have drive-through lanes shall not circulate around any primary street frontage with the, except for any drive-through being located within an RMX district. So we can just change that maybe sentence. Except an exit lane in the RMX district.
I
Oh,
suggest.
no, RMX, you can go through. It's just that, oh man. You can go in front, entering or exiting.
Yeah, I think that part of the problem is the
Andrea.
way we're phrasing this. Could we just say it positively instead of creating an exception? Say, it is okay if there is a lane in front of the building in RMX. And it is okay if there's a lane in the front of the building in T5UC, as long as it's screened.
Right.
Just say it like that.
Right, that's fine.
In both circumstances or just a T5UC?
The
Well-
poll did not address screening for me.
Well, I think, yeah, I think no one agreed on the T5UC, so we're back to
No,
getting it.
no, everybody did agree on an
RMX.
exit lane, Kurt. They
Yeah,
did.
Okay, but that's,
4-3, that was the vote
Or in favor of the lane.
of an exit lane in T5UC. It's very simple.
oh, I saw 4 against and 3.
No, 4-4.
Okay, 4. Okay,
All 4 on the left side.
okay. I mean, so how would you like to do this? I would disagree because that's kind of, I think we're getting into the T5UC, so we're kind of creating, I think you should just
Well-
leave the T5UC.
They voted it.
What I'm saying is if we got the basic idea, I think now.
Sure.
There's a lane in front of the building in T5UC as long as it's screened, as Kimberly said. And then, if we can just tweak this stuff outside of this meeting or something, so we can get on to the rest of our discussion tonight.
Well, I think the confusion, if you read specific to T5UC, that already exists on the code. So it's like we're re-arguing the same thing over and over again. I think it's just the confusion over the language of the RMX is happened. So if you read T5UC, it says it shall not be visible where the lot configuration makes it impossible to screen from the primary. It may be permitted. So it's already kind of allowing you to do that.
Right. Right.
So it doesn't need to be changed. So now I think the question is, it says that, so it's already given the T5UC somewhat of an allowance. So maybe we just need to say, just have, get rid of the specific to T5UC and just get rid of the I and maybe just put it as the next sentence from B.
Well, I think Bill's suggestion is good. Kurt, could you have your staff rewrite this section to reflect what we discussed and the poll and circulate it to us so we can look at it?
Hallelujah.
Well, we can, sure.
May I just quickly go into liner buildings very quickly?
Yes, quickly.
In your document, it's page 357. It's about structured parking. It's 4.5 point. Can you go to actually, it's easier to go to the page number 357 in the document. Is that possible?
No.
Yes.
No.
No. Okay. It's I'll tell you the number 4.5.11 structured parking.
Okay.
And then you go to C6.
4.5.11.
4.5.11. Then you got to go down to C. Then you got to go to 6. And then you got to go to 2.
I think it's on the screen.
Yes. And then you got to go to A. And 2 says that liner buildings are required. This is for structured parking now. So this is parking garages. And I'm particularly concerned about downtown. So bear with me. The T5 DC. So T5 districts. And so it's number 2 and it says liner buildings. And it says where they face. First of all, it says that the liner buildings must be on a primary road. for structured parking, okay? And then it gives an out if it's a secondary road. So you don't have to have liner buildings on a secondary road. Where downtown, I think you face two primary streets if you're on a block. That's my argument. But this allows an out, which I think is a problem. And then there's even another out, and I don't know who this has been carved out for, but it's very puzzling, Kurt. It's A. It says exceptions to this requirement may be granted when lot width or depth is less than 140 feet. Where no liner buildings, so you don't have to have liner buildings if your lot depth is or width is 140 feet. Where did that come from out of curiosity? Why would you exempt people from liner buildings for structured parking in downtown Beaufort? So I really encourage the board to think and understand that in downtown Beaufort, you need liner buildings for structured parking. Otherwise, you get a parking garage. And if you give people an out, which A does, 2A does, what you're going to have is you're going to have parking garages downtown with no liner buildings. It's as simple as that. Kurt,
Well taken, Mr.
may
Patton.
I ask a question, Kurt? Where did A come from? Was it in the original code?
I mean, I don't think we changed that. I think it was in the original code.
Okay.
I'd have to find it. I'd have to
Okay.
find it.
Well, I encourage the board to require liner buildings for structured parking in T5 DC. If you want structured parking, great. Just have liner buildings. That's my last comment. Thank you for
Yeah.
really paying attention to this input. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Trask. Appreciate your comments. You can give it some direction, Kurt, and then we'll move on. Is that in the original code, do you know?
Yeah, it was in the original code.
In the original. So I guess the question would be, is that an exception that the board wants to consider? I guess I hadn't really paid attention to it before.
Yeah.
We
I don't-
try not to talk about it. I think.
Yeah, I think we should re-study that because that's a pretty good point. Like, if we had structured parking downtown, it might take up, a whole block and then just put a liner building on one side, so.
I don't think we'll ever have it structured parking downtown Beaufort.
So I'm just confused
We don't
about
have any
the,
lots that are big enough and the demand is use.
Kurt, did you look at a code book to determine that that was in the original code? Because in the
Oh, I thought-
red line, it looks like it's added. It's red and underlined in the red line version.
We can probably, we can pull it up on the.
The reason that one was redlined is because the change there was just the formatting. So in the original code, it was 3B, but like little b,
Okay.
whereas in the red line or the new one, it's just the formatting from the little Roman numeral,
Okay,
but the language is the same from.
okay, thank you.
So does the board want to take that up now and just have a poll as to whether or not we want to require liner buildings regardless? Or should we, or do we want to accept this exception?
My only point was, maybe I didn't say, maybe I just whispered it to Mike, I don't think any of our downtown lots are big enough to have a structured parking facility with liner buildings around it. Realistically speaking, we probably, one, don't need a structured parking, and two, we're never gonna get one. I'd probably be in favor of just eliminating it as a use.
Oh, well,
in the
not,
downtown, but if we're gonna have it,
yeah.
you have to make it so you can practically build one. And I just don't think there's a lot big enough where it can accommodate a parking garage with liner buildings around it. The amount of parking left in the middle of it would be so infinitesimal, it would not even function. But
I think the section for parking lots need to.
Not parking lot, parking.
Or parking decks need to, need to stay in, but,
just because.
but my opinion would be whether or not either we restrict it to liner buildings or we don't, one or the other.
So if you wanted to poll us, frame a question.
So my question to the board would be, do we want to eliminate the need for liner buildings regardless of size for a parking structure?
Can I suggest an edit to that? Since the no liner building was in the original code, do we think a parking structure has to have liner buildings downtown in T5?
Okay, that's fair.
I remember going to a design seminar, probably 40 years ago. And it was all about how to build downtown parking structures, but we didn't call them liner buildings, but the idea was to put something on the outside of them, restaurants, shops, et cetera, so they didn't look like a parking garage. But these were in big, major city, lots that were large enough where you could still have a practical parking garage with what we here call liner buildings around it. I don't think when you think about downtown Beaufort, there's any block that's large enough to design a parking structure, probably at all, but certainly with a liner building around it or on the street face. So if we're gonna allow a parking structure, instead of just prohibiting them entirely from our code, I think that you at least have to make sure that somebody can come forward with a design that theoretically can work. And that means you just have to come forward with something that's aesthetically, that's possible. But a liner building would, for all intents and purposes, I think just make them impossible to ever build anyway, so then just outlaw them. That's
Well,
my theory, that's my view of the
Yeah,
situation.
that takes us back though to the original question. I appreciate your comment. But the original question is, do we want to require liner buildings for a parking deck or not?
You might pull us out.
And so I want to poll it, all those in favor of requiring liner buildings for parking decks, please raise your right hand. 3 and 4.
That's 4 to not
Four-
require.
4 not requiring it.
What did you say?
Wait,
Although, no, I
Is it
know,
the-
I thought you said require.
Yeah, you said. I
You said
said-
require.
Yes,
So 4
three
people are
said yes.
against requiring liner buildings.
against
on parking
requiring
decks.
3, 4 requiring.
I totally misunderstood what you
Okay,
just said.
I'm sorry.
Totally
Let me do
misunderstood
it
what you.
again. All those in favor of requiring liner buildings for parking decks signify by raising your right hand.
That's what you said the first time.
That's what you said the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's vote.
So requiring liner buildings.
Yeah, I thought you were saying, should we have liner buildings or parking decks in all circumstances?
Yes.
The question is,
Oh.
is if we, since Mike wants to leave the possibility of parking decks in our code, and the only question is, do we require liner buildings around them? And that's the answer. Yes, do you want to require a liner building on them, or no, not?
Yes.
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 We're, yeah.
No,
or
no,
no's
no.
over here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's clear. That's clear.
And the reason I go into that, I think I've done a lot of parking decks in my career. They've been, like Bill says, in major cities. But there's a way to do architectural
Mhm.
designs in parking decks.
To
that
mute the effect.
Make it look
Right.
good. And they don't require liner buildings. And I think, in my opinion, I think downtown needs to have some type of a parking structure based on the activities that we do have here.
Just for the record, I don't disagree with that.
And, so I don't want to restrict the, possibility in the future of somebody
Okay,
being willing to do that.
okay.
That's where I'm going with it. So,
That's fine.
We're gonna keep the language the way it is, which is got an exemption, it's a certain size. That.
yeah, we're not going to require liner buildings.
So we're gonna change this code.
No
completely.
liner, no liner buildings
For
or parking decks.
Structured park.
So do we want, I think the way it's written, what was written and remains written is that it refers to the lot size.
Yes.
Yes,
So do we want to keep that lot size reference, or do we want to just say,
no. I
you
think-
don't have to have liner buildings?
Right.
That's what I would suggest.
Okay,
Yeah, I just want to suggest, I mean, to imagine, there might be room, let's say the post office on Charles Street went away. I mean, it's just a small, whatever, 70s building on a whole city block in the downtown landmark historic district. It could accommodate a parking deck, structured parking. And would we really feel that that was going to be a good thing to have a parking structure there without a liner building on Charles Street, facing Charles?
Considering the aesthetic qualities of the post office that you're talking about that exists, it could only go up from there. in my opinion.
I disagree with that. I mean, I think at least post office, is for people are using it. The people are walking to it and all that. But with a garage, it kind of kills the pedestrian use on the sidewalk. So I feel like not requiring liner on any parking structure, regardless of size, is going to be a issue.
Activity killer.
Let me flip my vote.
pardon?
I've just flipped my vote.
All right.
We're basically going backwards from what Graham Trask was suggesting. We're going totally opposite.
Well,
Right.
but again, I don't know. I don't want to beat this horse too much more, but anyhow, I leave it the way it sits right now. I'm gonna allow one more public comment, but that's it. Okay, we've got to move on. Okay,
Yeah,
Paul?
yeah.
You gotta,
Can you come up to the podium?
Well, my comment, my favorite parking garage in Charleston is Charleston Place, which does have everything on East Bay Street is a liner building, so maybe it can be done, but really, I'm sorry, I just received a text from Graham requesting if he might say something else, and that's what I really wanted to say.
last chance, Graham.
I think I'd like you guys, I'm fine to leave it like it is. I think it is a gross miscarriage of aesthetics to suggest that parking garages should not have liner buildings. I don't agree with the suggestion that you can put lipstick on a pig without liner buildings and say that you can make parking structures look good in downtown Beaufort without liner buildings. I mean, that's an opinion. But that I hope you guys will reconsider, but if not, we'll have to address it some other way. But there are places that you can put parking structures in downtown, Mr. Bardenwarper. One I know very well. It somehow got exempt from liner buildings. I don't know how. And liner buildings ensure that you don't see a bunch of cars in a parking garage. Anyway, I've said my piece, but it is irresponsible, in my opinion, to not require liner buildings around a parking garage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Graham. Appreciate it.
Sorry, is it possible that we not make this change and talk about this at another code change session?
I think it's not a change. I think that's oh,
Because you guys are suggesting just taking this whole section out.
Yeah, I think it's possible. Um, But let's move forward with the rest of this
Yeah,
and.
I think we haven't talked about this yet. And so,
Yeah,
we've spent a year on this, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit frustrated, but you know, I don't think this is kind of the time to be undoing the entire section here. I mean, we haven't talked about it except for the last 20 minutes. We literally have not talked about parking garages at all. And so, you know, if you want to have a special session and go over all those standards, let's do that. But, you know, is there a problem here? I mean, I don't know. Is this worth spending all this time on? I think that's something you have to consider because, you know,
okay, so let's move on.
okay. let's
So
move
where
on.
are we with it? I mean, because that's a huge change to not require parking structures to have liner buildings. So
I'm gonna say, I wanted to move forward and, with the rest of the code because I'd like to see what else we have potentially and, we can revisit all of these issues if we decide to go to another work session before we go through an approval of these sections.
Yeah, is there, you know, I know PUDs came up, Layden Street overlay, those were two, things that were kind of hanging, I think. Is there anything else from any other commissioner? So you know, I think we're kind of getting pretty far afield. I don't know if I need to go through a whole, you know, we've done this a lot of times, but you know, all three of us kind of went over it. You know, we went over the red line and the clean. We did do the annotated version with AI. It took a while, finally got something, but,
Let me ask you, let me ask about a specific section where I think something is missing. Maybe it got misplaced, maybe I'm blind on it, but on 4.5.7 apartment house, I can't see where all the stuff that we, go to page in your red line, page 36, 35 and 36.
that's probably
Can
further.
you tell me where the language is? Remember, we had that little ad hoc committee that was Benji and Libby and myself. And we talked about it at length, and then we talked about it, I think, at least one full planning commission meeting and, where I think I was chairing, and then at the very last, June 1st meeting, I don't see where all that language is in there where we talked about and I may just be blind, where you're a mile from the grocery and that if you have a three-story building, a four-story building, you have a three-story building. If you have a three-story, you have a two-story building. And we took out that section 11 house module approach at the last work session, but it's still in there. So explain that all to me.
and I just add one more thing about the apartment houses. I also thought that in T4, we were going to limit apartment houses to no more than 12 units per structure.
There was
I don't see that there.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of language. I mean,
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
the whole thing is, I don't know what happened. And that raised, when I saw that today, I thought, well, how many different sections are we not showing what we already worked through and agreed upon?
Yeah, that is, not to know.
This is just a small thing, but we're going to require the EV chargers, remember the level 2 and how many per parking or how many per
Mhm.
unit. and
I mean,
That's not there.
basically on apartments, you left out everything that we decided.
Yeah, that's a good question. All four, all three of us went through this, and
Yeah.
it's pretty sad. I thought it was all in this red line, but somehow it
I think that's why I was
mixed up.
going to looking at another work session to give us the ability to, go back and take a look at all these. And it'll give us the ability to rethink our positions if we want to on these other items.
You know, I was hoping that I wouldn't have to read everything all over again because we've gone through it so many times. So what I did, as I went
All
through
got
the
deleted.
things that were most important to me,
It all got deleted, Nick.
and I noticed some other things.
The entire apartment.
It also didn't have the verbiage, it's kind of out of the apartment, but the verbiage that we added on the heights of the structures. I didn't see that from last meeting or work session.
So since it is, none of it is apparently there, let me ask you this question. Do you all remember what we decided? Do you have a record? I mean, because it was extensive.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how all three of us, how this,
I'm afraid that when we put it into AI, kind of got left out or jumbled.
I haven't. It's,
One question I have, the recordings of our work sessions, are they done on Zoom? Or are we using some other platform?
we're using some, yeah.
Did somebody answer me? I didn't hear an answer. The question is, Zoom has a transcript feature. Is there some reason we would not use that in a situation like this where apparently there's, there's no record of, no clear
There-
record of what
there it
we
is.
agreed to? You have that recording? Okay, it might be a little hard to read through it right now, but it might be helpful to have available for our next work session, because I do have concerns that we are not keeping an accurate record of exactly what we agreed to. And then some of us occasionally will miss a session, so not all of us know what happened when, like I missed part of the session last time, and some of the stuff may have happened when I wasn't there. So a transcript might be helpful, especially since we're already using technology that permits it.
We had cake and coffee and didn't do anything when you were gone.
All right, well, since there's a lot, do you want to talk about garages then? And is there anything else we should chat about?
Well, here's the I mean, if we miss something, we spend more time on the apartment section than most things. And as I said, what concerns me is how much else may have just slipped by. That just happens to be what
Yeah,
I went to today to see. I want to make sure that all the things that we'd really spend some time talking about were there. That was the big one. But there's some other little things, and other people might find other things that they're like, whatever happened to? I did see that apparently we got the B&B stuff correct from the last meeting, so those changes, so it wasn't as though we just skipped everything that happened at the last work session. It was that we just kind of skipped some of the things.
I have no idea what happened. I don't know.
don't
And I know all three of us revised this, and that might be the problem. So,
It just looks like we need to regroup a little bit here. And so
I was thinking that would prevent the mistake, because three people, it's so much. One gets tired of doing it after a while. I know I have, so,
Well, just a suggestion, there's usually multiple staff members at all meetings and work sessions. And I do like, I think we found it working well to be revising things in real time during our work sessions. That should be one person's job. Somebody else needs to keep a running notes of what we're talking about and deciding. I mean, divide the labor a little bit, and then you have a cross-check that might prevent.
yeah, and the cross-check was the red line version, and I guess something happened in the meantime, because we haven't been changing the red line version. When we formatted, the problem was formatting this red line version and then turning over to clean version, something happened. Something happened where it was all, that was,
And at least some things that
Something
are in the
happens.
red line version are not in the clean version. We discovered the one, that little two. So I mean, that, I don't know what the solution to that is, how that got missed in the clean version.
No, we were all looking forward to possibly
I was looking forward to it, that's for sure.
proving this and moving forward. But I don't think there's any way out of
Having a work
giving you,
session.
giving you more homework and going to another work session and.
Was there anything else? And do you want to talk about garages for the work session? Obviously, we'll work on the language for the drive-through.
We're gonna go back and revisit garage. I want to revisit garages. We'll go ahead and take another look at the drive lanes since we voted on it, but we'll take another look at that also.
There, I think we all just need to take a careful look at, I don't know if it's these versions or what, to make sure that at least the things that were important to, which, you know, whoever of us, you know, we all had different things, I think. And so kind of go
Yeah,
back and look
I
at things
agree,
and see
I
if what
agree.
was important to you is, you know, is there, or has been missed.
We still
I do-
have
I
the
do think apart from
deadline.
that, you just mentioned the PUD thing earlier. I guess right now in our current version of the code, we still keep the PUD, although there had been some discussion about eliminating it. And I think, Libby in particular, you were of the view that maybe we just finally just
Put it to rest.
eliminate it from the code. And I got thinking about that after the last meeting, because I said I would take a look at some PUD type regulations that I had experience with, and I did. But I think, and I don't think that the one we had was all that bad. I just think that given the amount of time that we have spent deciding how we want this community to look,
Mhm.
and given the fact that it's not a very big community, there isn't that much land left, there aren't all that many infill sites. I don't know that we'd want someone to come forward with a PUD that looked different than the vision that we've
Mhm.
now put forth. And
Mhm.
so I think for that reason, I would be with Libby on it, to just get rid of the PUD rather than to encourage somebody to come forward with a planned development, other than a legacy one that we've got nothing, you know, we have no control over. To come forward with a development that's outside of our current vision of the way things should look in Beaufort. So I just eliminate it.
I'm in favor of that. Mike, do you want to maybe take a poll of the committee on that?
Yeah, before I do that, I think the historic board, task force had a brief discussion earlier today about that.
I think they were talking about overlays, not PUDs.
And I think it was both, because they brought up the issue that we were looking at.
At the Bladen Street overlay. They said, I think the context was not only, it was in the context of the Bladen Street thing kind of looked, you know, kind of worked well, and maybe another kind of overlay. It was just really vague discussions, the way I heard it, but maybe another Bladen Street kind of overlay for
Yeah,
the Northwest Quadrant might be a way of helping to expedite, you know, resurrection of that whole thing, you know. But I don't think it was in terms of ever being a PUD in the
well,
overlay.
okay, all right.
That's true.
Yeah, I think it was an overlay concept, and it was just a vague idea.
Okay, well, that's fine. If we
Yeah.
want to take a poll, would everybody be ready to take a poll on PUDs?
Yes, yes.
So, the question, I guess, before the board is, would we like to, eliminate PUDs from the code as it sits right now? All those in favor of eliminating PUDs signify by raising your right hand. Okay, so everybody's in favor of eliminating PUDs.
And that's new, obviously new PUD.
Yeah.
How about Bladen Street? Are we clear on Bladen Street?
The reason Bladen Street was brought up mostly was, I think Libby wanted to eliminate it and turn it back over to the Historic Review, Design Review Board, as opposed to having it still singled out. And I thought there was a lot of, I thought that was good. I think the concern that I heard from the task force was that if we revert that back, then we put that back into the requirements for architecture
Right.
and materials that is there in the code now as opposed to what they're allowed to do, under the, under the overlay they're in.
Yeah, and I think it was that ADU situation that kind of
Right.
motivated us to do something because of, we never expected that to happen, yet it did.
So is there a majority to still remove it or a majority to keep it the way it is?
Well, my understanding is, we're only talking about overlay right now?
Bladen Street.
Yes.
But the poll was on the PUD, and then Mike just brought up the overlay thing, because right now in this revision, I think, I double checked that. Right now on our revision that, based on our last meeting, we decided to eliminate the Bladen Street as an overlay going forward.
Right, and that was the question that, and I just was talking about what happened in our meeting today.
Right.
And I can understand that from developers' standpoint and what's going on in the whole Northwest Quadrant. But I think that the feeling of the board was that it need to have go back under the Historic Review Board to have more control over it. So
Right.
I guess I'd like to, just poll the board, given that information, as to whether or not we want to continue to say that we wanted to. Because I think we all decided last time that we were going to get rid of the overlay,
But only Bladen Street.
only Bladen Street.
So if we get rid of that, how would that preclude a new overlay district for some other area?
It wouldn't.
It would.
It wouldn't, it wouldn't.
All right,
So, just take a review, a polling then. Do you still want to, eliminate the overlay for Bladen Street?
yes, raise your hand.
Yes. And that's still unanimous, so we're still okay with that. Okay,
Is there anything else that anybody wanted to bring up that we can work on? And finally, yeah, go ahead. I'll stop there. Any other code sections that something seemed off? We still have the saved version from, haven't touched that. I think formatting it has been the problem. So formatting the red line is probably a bad idea, to be honest with you. But
Kurt, I had some additional notes on the diagrams, and I think it's mainly just graphical stuff and some like definition stuff that got duplicated. I don't
Okay.
think it's like giant, but I could probably just email it to you guys.
final comment is, your next work session is, the Monday after 4th of July. Just making sure that that's okay for everybody, or if you wanted to change that work session.
Not gonna be here.
I won't be here, but,
So do you want to
is-
shift it to the next week?
or is there, let me
Like
just
the
ask, is there any interest in
13th?
trying to fit it in the next 2 weeks?
I'll be on vacation.
So you'll be gone, okay.
yeah, I don't know how
I'll-
much
I'll
time you
just-
guys are gonna need to go back through everything.
I'll just tune in wherever.
Would the 13th work? Is that a Monday, right?
That's a Monday?
Yep, July 13th is a Monday.
Uh,
Or later that week, like the 8th or 9th or 10th?
Monday is always a good day for me.
I'm tied up on Monday of the 13th.
Okay. So would the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday work of the, what is that? Would be the, what, the 8th, 9th, or 10th?
Good on Friday? Oh, the 9th, 10th.
The 8th is a Wednesday.
I'm good on Wednesday. I'm good on,
I could make Wednesday, the 8th of July work. I can make Wednesday, the 8th of July work.
That works
Well,
for me.
that's the HRB, so it would have to be the morning.
be out of town.
On the 8th, you're going to be out of town?
Yep.
What about the 15th?
Good.
That works for me.
I'm good on the 15th.
15th can work.
It's Wednesday, the 15th.
Anybody not work on the 15th?
But we can, if I'm not there, I can just, I guess, right, online.
Zoom?
1 o'clock?
Yeah.
Just know that hopefully we can fix all this stuff before then, and then any changes are gonna have to be done by the Friday, so, possible, it's doable.
Okay,
So if you get the
We're
change.
probably gonna have to
by-
send out stuff way
by
ahead of time.
Friday, that gives us 3 working days to review. So if you get it to us before that, possibly that would be, give us a little more time to review.
Hopefully we can send you everything way ahead of the 15th. It's just your changes I think we can make. Hopefully the next day.
Well, so I would like to request that the changes be given to us like on Friday before the 4th of July. It's Friday, July 3rd. That would give us a longer time to review. And, you know, if we're really trying to wrap this up, we need time to review the changes and know the version that we're dealing with. If that's possible, then you can go off to the.
I
4th.
think could maybe be the next week, just because have the day off on the 4th of July, so that's a short week and we'll have a lot going on.
Well, okay, if you give them to us by by
Maybe the Wednesday, what would that be?
Wednesday.
Be the,
The 8th. Well, that would be better than
or the Monday, how's that? The Monday, the
Monday, the 6th.
6th?
Is Friday the day off?
Yeah.
Okay, Monday, well, why don't you make it Tuesday, the 7th? So they can wrap up your, last minute review.
Google. Any other comments?
We do have an opening on the PC, so if you know anybody, give them their arm, I guess.
I have somebody that may go ahead and put in an application.
Is that, the opening, is it to complete Bill's term or is it for a new?
A new
You're
term,
over,
new
okay.
3-year term.
Open for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
we're adjourned. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
You just get tired of this or did you?